Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I'm not surprised it's standing room only again because our next speaker is Jim Easton, who is the man who is running the KIP program. He's got to deliver £20 billion worth of savings, £20 billion worth of savings in the NHS over the next 20 years, over the next 3 years, I beg your pardon. That would be giving him too easy a target. Actually, it's 3 years for 20 million. And Expo, indeed, this very exhibition and conference session that we're at is all part of that. And Jim is going to be speaking about a vision of how different the system could be right now if we began to scale up the technological innovation that we already know about. Let's forget what else is in the pipeline, but what we already know about. And he's going to also talk about how we need to change the system in order to achieve that kind of adoption. So I'm going to hand over to Jim. He's going to talk for about 45 minutes, but because he's not going to take any questions at that point, because he's going to take part in the Q&A session with a panel, which starts at 3 o'clock. So I'm going to hand over to Jim for his 45 minutes that will have you on the edge of your seats, I have no doubt. Jim Easton. Jim, take step.
Martin, thank you. Good afternoon. Well, if ITN say it's 3 billion over 20 years, I'll take that. It's a fantastic piece of news. It's a fantastic pleasure to be here at the event and to have the chance to talk to you in a really upbeat way. I think we're entering that phase of delivery that feels difficult. It feels as though in a few weeks' time the change in the money becomes real, the pressures that we're trying to face, the change that we're trying to drive can feel as though it's bearing down on people. And one of the points of running this event is to raise our eyes, to raise our spirits about the way in which the thing about the QIP challenge is not to see it as something negative, but to see it as something that unleashes a wave of innovation across the NHS. The things that were previously in the desirable but put off to another day, the possibly attractive but too complicated to do box, we have to do for QIP. So we will be the generation of healthcare leaders who take a service that in many ways is about fantastic people working in quite old-fashioned ways, sometimes with some flashy bits of kit, and create a service that looks and feels and is experienced like the other best technologically driven services that we expect in the rest of our lives. So I think we should feel positive about the aspiration to use this as an opportunity to create a system driven by innovation. This is the King's Fund graph of the QIP challenge. The point of it is that it's non-negotiable. You know, if we just stand still and do nothing, this gap emerges before our eyes. You know, it's given to us that we have to be the people who take this challenge on and solve it. We have this paradoxical situation of being, amongst other government departments, incredibly privileged to have our funding protected, and at the same time, that represents the most challenging funding position the NHS has experienced. It's paradoxical, it's difficult to explain to the people we serve and our communities, but it means that we will be given rightly, I think, no quarter about not taking it on with energy, because we have been given that privileged position and it's down to us to deliver. But doing nothing is not an option, nor is doing the same. I had the pleasure with David Nicholson of going to the PAC to talk about productivity recently. I gave a famous answer to which one of the PAC members said they didn't want to be troubled by any of my so-called facts, which left me with nowhere to go at all, actually, as all I'd prepared were facts. But the main point of that was that for all our remarkable success over the last decade in taking some new money and turning that into a system that could hold its head up around the world, the fact is that we did that whilst we basically kept the productivity of the system flat. We achieved some of the Q in QIP, but productivity stayed completely flat. It's a shame, really. If we had more foresight, we could have invested some of that large amount of money in things that would drive out longer-term change. But there we go. So doing nothing is an option, nor is doing the same. The things that have made you successful in running your hospitals and GP practices and PCTs and strategic health authorities for the last 10 years, the very things that have made you successful will lead you to failure over the coming 5 and 10 years. It's a challenging and troubling thought. There's nothing harder than changing a winning formula, but that is exactly what we have to do. And I worry that I still see some parts of the system thinking that just trying to apply the same remedies more quickly or more aggressively will produce the solution. And the evidence and the practice and the experience of our own eyes tells us that's not the case. And the thing that will unlock that new model of working is innovation. One of the things I did when I accepted the generous offer of this job, described by many people as the most easily identified career-ending job ever taken by any individual in the NHS. When I meet people, they always shake my hand at the end and say, good luck. And they say it in the way that I think squadron leaders in the First World War must have said to their young pilots as they waved them off over the horizon. The thing that keeps me going is that it's not my job, it's our job to achieve it. So, but one of the things I did when I took it on was I went and talked to some leaders of other industries about how they drive for quality and value, and they talked relentlessly about one thing. They didn't talk about the things I talked about. I said we're gathering the evidence and we're doing the planning, and they said, yeah, those things might be useful. The thing they talked about relentlessly was technology. It's technology that has unlocked the relationship between quality and value in every other industry. But I'm a 20-something year lifer as a manager in the NHS. I was never culturally or formally in training given skills and competencies in how to think about technology, how to go and search it out. It was never a part of my assessment of my capability as a leader. Never made a difference between whether I was a band 1. It never made a difference between being a 3-star trust and a 2-star trust or a foundation trust when I was a trust chief executive. The drive for quality for technology isn't in our DNA as leaders, and we have to create it. We have to wake up in the middle of the night thinking what is happening in the technology industry, and more importantly, which will be the theme of my presentation, how do I take that and make it happen at pace and at scale? And those are the fundamental questions. So there's the change process for Quip starts with us. Starts with us changing our skill set and our knowledge to be people obsessed with how we harness technology at scale and pace to unlock the relationship between quality and value. And more of the same, even more of the same done faster, is sleepwalking towards failure.